So welcome to 11.2. In the last lesson, we used adding and subtracting to solve equations. Now we're going to use multiplying and dividing. So 6x equals 66. That's asking you 6 times blank equals 66. What is the only thing that could go in there? Well, we can do that in our head. It's 11. So we're going to say x is 11. Let's look at the second one. Now this is 5 equals x divided by 6. So this is 5 equals what number divided by 6? So what number divided by 6 equals 5? Well, that number is 30. 30 divided by 6 equals 5. And so you might write 30 equals x, since x is on the right side here. And what about 3 times x equals 48? Well, 3 times blank equals 48. Well, 3 times 12 is 36, so it's above our times table. 3 times, well, let's see. What other way could we do it? Well, x is being multiplied. So instead of adding or subtracting like we did last time, when x is being multiplied by a 3, we're going to divide both sides by 3. Why? Because 3 divided by 3 equals 1, and 1 times x gets x by itself. So really what you can just do is 48 divided by 3. So what is 48 divided by 3? Well, 3 goes into 4 once, 3 goes into 8 6 times, and so the answer was 16. 3 times 16 equals 48. All right, so we're going to be, what number divided by 12 equals 5.4? If it's division, we're going to multiply both sides by 12, and we'll see that. So in the last lesson, we learned that adding and subtracting were inverse operations. Now it's multiplying, dividing. So let's see that. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 divided by 5. Right back to 7. That's because multiplying by 5 and dividing by 5 are inverse operations. They undo each other. They cancel each other out. Here, let's see if I do the division first, if it's different. 18 divided by 3 is 6. 6 times 3, nope, still 18. Right? Because dividing by 3 and multiplying by 3 are inverse operations. So that's x divided by 2 times 2. What do you think that equals? All right, well, you can see, you just cancel those out and you get x. But x divided by 2 times 2, still x. So we're going to do inverse operations. So x is being multiplied by 3, so we divide by 3, right? So that's how we write division. Could you theoretically do this? Yeah, you could, but no one does. All right. In algebra, we write our division as a fraction, so that's divide by 3, and that's divide by 3. You do it to both sides of the equal sign. So 3 over 3 is canceling out, inverse operations, and it's x by itself. There's our goal, x by itself, right? Not the number. The number will just come if you do everything to both sides. So 18 divided by 3 is 6. All right, so now x is being multiplied by 4. We're dividing both sides by 4. So that's x by itself. 36 divided by 4, 9. That now, when x was being multiplied, you divided. Now x is being divided. That's x divided by 2. So what do? We multiply. Now we don't just put a 2 here. You have to show multiplication here. And this is really the only thing I'm going to give you choice on. You can show your multiplication. Now, you don't want to put an x times an x, right? So I tend to use the multiplication dot over here. You could also use the multiplication dot here, but we're going to have decimals in a second. So I tend to have the x over there, which is not very consistent, but it works for me. You pick how are you going to show multiplication on both sides. 13 times 2 is 26. So once again, x is being divided by a 7, so we're going to multiply by 7. This x divided by 7 times 7x, multiply by 7 over there. Negative 12 times 7 is negative 84. So as I promised, there's decimals and negatives. So now, it's got to be the exact same number both sides, and it's got to be the exact same number that's either multiplying or dividing x. So we have to do multiply both sides by negative 2. If you multiply by positive 2, you get negative x, because that's negative 1. Okay, so we want to have exactly the same number there. It's got to be negative 2 on both sides. Let me get it. So we're multiplying by negative 2. I don't need to line up my decimal points because this is multiplication. Now, Two negatives make a positive, so this answer is going to be positive. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Move the decimal one time, right, from there to there, and then I'm going to erase it. So it's x equals 11.4. Also notice one thing. I should have said this yesterday. Notice I did all my work right underneath the equation. I want to do as much work right underneath. I want to do as little of going to the side work as possible. So you work down when you solve equations. You don't work to the right. All right, so x is being multiplied by 1.2. So what do we have to do to both sides? Divide by 1.2. Now, let's do that. So now we do need side work, right? Because it's 4.2 divided by 1.2. We're not allowed to do that. So we're going to make that 12. I move that once, I got to move that once. So it's 42 divided by 12. Well, 12 times 3 is 36. The 3 goes above the 2. Get a remainder of 6. 42 has a decimal point. Straight up. 0 straight down. Oh, 12 goes exactly into 65. And so this answer is 3.5, or 3 5/10. So we're doing it with letters now. All right, so x is being multiplied by m. So you divide by m, both sides. And so x equals v over m. X is being divided by b. What do you do to both sides? You multiply by b, both sides. And so I use the multiplication dot because I have x in the, well, I should be more consistent, but c times b. Or you could write, so you could write cb, you can write cb, or commutative property, b times c. Solve the equation for y this time. Oh, I changed it up. All right, so now y is being divided by x. So what do? You multiply both sides by x. And so y, oh, wait a minute. Y equals kx, right? That's what we use for proportions, right? Proportional equations, right? How did we find k? You would take, that was our original equation, right? That's the relationship between those two equations. Finally, we can show that. And this is one of the things you're going to be doing in algebra next year, or 2 years, depending on. But, right, we learned that the constant proportionality is the number for y divided by the number for x, the simplified fraction. Well, then I said write the equations. You did y equals k times x. Well, that's the same equation, just with this done to it. So we multiplied both sides by x. They are in fact the same thing. They are proportional equations. Let's practice. So 9x equals 63. X is being multiplied by 9. Divide both sides by 9. X equals 7. Divide here both sides by 8. Now, 8 goes into 90. First of all, I'm going to put the negative sign. And this is something for a test, right? The answer is negative, but I can't do it. Maybe I can't do it in my head. So I'm going to come over and do side work. And I don't want to forget that the answer is negative. So 8 goes into 12 once. So remainder 4. Decimal straight up for 92. Then 0 straight down. 8 into 45. So it's right, because it's very possible you could write 11.5, which is the opposite of the answer. It's negative 11.5. X is being divided by 13, so multiply both sides by 13. Now here's another trick. Put the 13 up above the 6. You don't need to come over here and do it. Right? Now you could, by the way, you can multiply that. It's just not as, it's because there's going to be 2 rows instead of 1. It's not as good, but the best way is just put the 13 above the 6 and multiply right there. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 78 equals x. X divided by 4 equals negative 7 6/10. So we're multiplying both sides by 4. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 is 30. And it's going to be negative, and I got to move the decimal once. And so it is negative 30.4 is what x is. Solve for x. So x is being multiplied by a. So we divide by a, both sides. That's my a, lowercase a. And so it is negative b over a. That's what x equals. Whatever the opposite of b is divided by a. Solving for x is being divided by a. You're going to multiply both sides by a. So ab equals x. A times b equals x. Yes, you could also write b times a. So x is being multiplied by 3/10. Divide both sides by 3/10. And so it's 14.4 divided by 0.3 or 3/10. Now I'm going to put the negative sign here because it's going to be negative. And then I got to fix that there. If I move that to make it 3, I got to move that to make it 144. 3 goes into 14 4 times with a remainder of 2. Bring down the 4. 3 into 24, 8. And so the answer here is negative 48. 3/10 goes into negative 14 and 4/10, negative 48 times. Good luck with the homework.